Hello everyone, happy December. Welcome back to what is going to be, unfortunately, the last in-out crowd of 2021. Even though we're out and about a little bit more, at the moment we're staying in, and of course, as always, we are always very much out. We have got a lot of things planned for tonight, and we have got some final little Christmas crackers, if you will, that's not including myself, to sprinkle in for your festive season. And to kick off this evening, we have got not just my lovely, gorgeous face, but the lovely, gorgeous face of our artistic director, Tommy Small, for a wee announcement about the future of our queer content and what the In-Out Crowd is going to become. Thomas, would you like to take it away at the moment?
Well, indeed. Well, after all this time working on the In-Out Crowd during lockdown, we appreciate that things have changed quite dramatically over the last 2 years, moving on to mostly everything being digital to now things are starting to open up a bit more, people are out and about a bit more. So what we thought we would do is then the In-Out Crowd needs to change with the times. So from January, well, actually it's from February 2022, we're going to have a slightly new format for the In-Out Crowd that will be taking place on YouTube. So we're going to launch that as part of, I've not got just not just one announcement, Alex, I've got two. Surprise! Because my second announcement is that we have been funded by the Scottish Government from the Community Recovery Fund to put on a festival as part of LGBT History Month. So if you live in Dundee or are nearby Dundee, then we'd love you to pop on down to the numerous events that we're going to be doing in partnership with Dundee Pride. So there'll be performances, workshops, loads of stuff. But because, you know, we like all things digital too, there's also going to be digital connections as well. So if you don't live nearby, you can still join in our festival. And that festival is going to be called Outfest. So yeah, join us for February LGBT History Month for Outfest and the new iteration of the In-Out Crowd.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah, the logo might need a bit of work, but we've got the out, so we're like halfway there. We just need to add on text. You know, just text it up and it'll be fine, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That sounds fantastic, full of glitz, glamour and camp. And since I've mentioned the word camp, I thought I would bring us in one last little word of the sleigh. Look at that. And it's a sleigh because it's Christmas and everything. Look, it's as if I planned this before coming on. It's no like me. So yes, you may have heard of the term camp. You may have even heard of the term Camp is Christmas, which I first heard on series 4, I think, of Will and Grace, and I was hooked ever since, right? So where and how did the word camp, which normally you'd associate with tent poles, right? How does that then relate to, well, not poles, but you know what I mean, right? How does that relate to what we now know as camp and gorgeous and glitz and glamour and all of that? So I'm here to give you a whistle-stop tour on the history of camp. So the earliest iteration of the word camp that we can find in terms of what we know it as, that isn't all about tent poles and tent pegs and we, hope plates in the middle of the woods, is actually from the French term ooh la la, meaning c'est camper. And that loosely translates to, listen to this, to pose in an exaggerated fashion. I mean, if anything's going on my gravestone, right, it's going to be that. So that's what the general sort of term meant. There's also another version of the word from Le Français, known as campagne or campagne. I don't know, I failed standard grade French, so take that for what you will, okay? Apologies to anybody watching in Paris. And that also was synonymous with the suburbs and the countryside, where generally a lot more affluent people resided, and generally a lot more affluent people were of a certain demographic that would work in with this rainbow in the back here. So as well as that, that was, of course, in the French term. How did that then come to actually be much more of a British-based and UK-based slang term for, sort of camp and theatre and, all that kind of stuff? There's not really any describing words for camp, right? So camp then was kind of adopted in the original gay slang, which was Polari, as made famous by Julian and Sandy, Kenneth Williams and Hugh Paddock in the 60s BBC radio programme Round the Horn. And like many of these words, its origins are always obscure. I think we'd already talked about in previous Words of the Sleigh about, you know, Friend of Dorothy's and, you know, the sort of the meanings of pink in the queer community. So, but there's also been suggestions that camp, spelt K-A-M-P, was also known as male partner, as in, you know, two of you've gone together having a good time, not just to the cinema, but to lots of other places. And of course, I'd already mentioned the say camper, to posture, behave extravagantly. These are possible derivations, but we really started to see camp as we know it now, you know, all the campness, start to progress through contemporary culture, mainly through music. So lots of artists and performers such as Cher, Josephine Baker, Dusty Springfield, Bridget Bardot, Carmen Miranda, Lady Gaga, Madonna. These folks, particularly Cher, was known as the Queens or Queen of Camp. And that was mainly down to their stage personas and their performances. So those of you who are fans of Cher, give a holler in the comments if that's you, because it's definitely me. She worked very famously with costume designer Bob Mackie to create not just an outfit, darling, but a piece, many pieces that were full of rhinestones, full of glitter, just what you're thinking, times it by 100 and then throw a bit more glitter on it because it's not enough, right? That's how the term camp started to then become synonymous with music, theatre, television, certain television programmes that brought this across. And the main distinguish between sort of kitsch and camp, they're sort of in the same umbrella, but I learned from none other than Wikipedia, who learned it from none other than camp, notes on fashion, exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So I didn't go there, but apparently this person on Wikipedia did, said that kitsch normally refers to specifically work itself. So, and then camp refers to the performance or performer. So using the lovely Cher as an example, because any excuse not to, the costume pieces that Bob Mackie designed would have been kitsch, whereas put it together with the performance, it then becomes camp. And that is how camp then just became synonymous with the queer community, how does that gobbledygook taste? The queer community, to then be involved with everything from, you know, drag and theatre. You know, of course, we have the fantastic theatre productions such as Priscilla, Queen of the Desert and Kinky Boots and all of these other amazing productions that have really embraced drag and then brought that level of camp even further. So I do hope that with this little bit of learning, you have a very camp Christmas or camp holidays, whichever you're celebrating or not celebrating this December. And that is our last little whistle-stop tour of some queer slang that has, of course, just become known worldwide for a little aesthetic that it's giving off. Now, as well as all of the lovely aesthetics we're giving off, we have had many guests, and I'd like to thank ourselves as well, over the last year and a bit of the In Out crowd that have given off fantastic aesthetic, amazing conversations, and certainly give all new meaning to the word camp and fun, and of course always very, very queer in the In Out crowd. We have the lovely Eleanor has put together a fantastic little montage of the best of our guests this year, as well as the best of your resident hosts, if you don't mind. So we are going to have a wee look at that just now, a year or a bit in the In Out crowd.
Sit here on this program and advocate that people turn off their computers and their phones, but turn off your computer and your phone once in a while.
Burlesque is a great art form because it's accessible to a lot of people who couldn't normally get into other forms of dance or expression, let's say.
We have to simultaneously press up and down in order to express our consent. So both people agree and shake hands, we can progress with the game.
And if younger people are watching this and they're thinking, oh well, I don't know if I want to do this, and maybe I need to take a break. That's valid as well. I've had friends that have deferred and they've now came back to finish their courses, but you have to trust your gut and go with what you feel.
And we deliberately wanted to make it quite a sort of mashup publication, and by that I mean to have that breadth of content, so that maybe somebody who might pick up an arts magazine now then finds out about businesses that they might not necessarily have known about.
Because if we choose to ignore one group, one sect, one belief, because it isn't aligned with who we are, but there's no point in knowing it, then we're missing out on a whole different language of love, of learning. It's ridiculous, in my opinion.
It's going to be fine. Lee's going to come out. You're going to understand that your sexuality is a real thing. So just relax.
I sit here on this.
Amazing guests, amazing conversations, and so many amazing, I could say the word amazing all night, things that we have learned about not only our community, but, sorry, get the tissues out, also ourselves. And yes, I am somewhat the main face, not main face, but you just tend to hear me talking nonsense more than everybody else here. And really, it could not have all been put together without the amazing help of the Shaper Caper team and all of our fantastic funders, particularly the Corra Foundation that is helping us out at the moment. And yeah, I want to also thank you, Eleanor, again, for putting together a bit of a montage for the kind of behind the scenes team here at the In Out Crowd and all of the amazing things that everyone else has done. I'm not amazing. I just sit here with, you know, my logo t-shirts that aren't even a sponsor and just kind of talk nonsense into a camera, and nobody's listening to me in here in my one bedroom flat. So let's have a wee look at all of the amazing things that the team has done for the In Out Crowd this year. In some sort of like witch's closet, which is that I've not been in the closet for a very long time, so it's very unusual for me, my goodness. Tommy will be pleased to know there's another bear joining us this evening. I'm sure it's been a while since you've seen a bear in the flesh, so I thought I would bring it to you just as I'm afraid he's only here for me.
On the highest point of the territory on Cattle Island, a campsite called Heaven was claimed as the capital of the gay and lesbian kingdom of the Coral Sea Islands. Yes, you did hear me correctly.
And I mean, that is the most, you know, it's not just like the nation of the Coral Sea. No, it was the gay and lesbian kingdom. Like, that is the pageantry.
So just to provide an opposite opinion from the usual Madonna fandom.
Number one up there has to always be Madonna. Madonna. Our queen. Madonna. Thank you, Madonna.
And don't worry, I'll hold all wee prick jokes. We've heard them all. The prick, of course, referring to the COVID jag itself. So the rest of you, get your mind out. The gutter, thank you.
Right, Alex, it's finally your time to shine. Is this the 10 you were after for, Bob?
Am I the only one that had to mute myself for that nonsense? Oh my goodness, how, like, do not, everyone just don't write down how many times we said Madonna over the last year and a bit, because I didn't quite realise it was that much. But you know what? Give credit where it's due. She is, of course, the one and only queen. I'd like to invite my little team here at the In Out Crowd and just kind of go over to use. That was kind of some things that I'd kind of said to Eleanor I'd like to include, some things I thought were kind of quite nice moments. But what do you pair think was a bit of a kind of highlight moment over the last however many months it's been with the In Out Crowd? Eleanor, I'll come to you first. Any highlights?
obviously outside of the numerous mentions of Madonna, I have to say I'm gonna hark it right back, and one of the episodes that for me felt like a real great episode altogether was when we talked a lot about the HIV and AIDS crisis, and we had on some people who some gay men who talked about giving blood, and also about the benefits of all the different medications that you could take, like PrEP for HIV. And I just think that was a really great episode that was very informative. But also, I think I certainly had a lot of fun whilst we did it, because Gregor and Jay, who were both on, were very, very funny. And yeah, I really enjoyed that episode.
Totally, yeah. It's about kind of we've kind of been chatting over the course of however long we've been doing not just the In Out Crowd, but all of our sort of LGBTQ plus centred work, such as Hear Me Out, a project we did with Our Stories Scotland. I keep saying last year, but actually it started in like 2019. I've totally lost all my years after 2020. But yeah, it's like we often look at really deep, sometimes quite upsetting sort of subjects. So if there's a way to sensitively and appropriately do it around a frame of humour and kind of supporting one another and kind of listening to those stories in a way that, yeah, it's a safe environment, you know, it really does make sometimes the message actually hit home more, because, you know, you're getting to see these, you know, you can read, I love the news, I read the news a lot, but there's only so much words can tell you. You know, if someone feels comfortable and safe enough to share those stories from their own personal as well as professional experience, then like who couldn't be there for it? You know, what else is there to talk about? Tommy, what about yourself? Any kind of shining moments that are sticking out for you? Oh, your Mac's been a bit naughty, Tommy. Sorry, we can't quite hear you. One final gremlin for 2021. What? No. What else can we say?
No.
Can't hear you, Tommy. I'm sorry. If you're able to pop it in our little chat, I can always see it for you, if that's an option. Yeah, I'll go ahead then. So my kind of a couple of shining moments for me, obviously the stuff that I kind of mentioned to yourself, Eleanor, but also I feel that very, very first episode with the amazing Remy and Kaja talking about the issues that were going on. You know, the In Out Crowd has changed so much. I was so nervous. The lighting was dreadful. I had a lamp right there. What was that all about? But again, it was the content might have evolved in the way that we're presenting it. Right from the very beginning, there was some really important and really striking conversations that were being had. And also, I think something else as well has been able to give that platform to not only to queer people, but to queer artists. And that is always something that, you know, the In Out Crowd and Shaper Caper as a whole would really love to be able to do, you know, and kind of give that bolster. Do you have any, Eleanor? I know you were queen of the hot topics. Was there any hot topics that you particularly really enjoyed researching or delivering?
I mean, one jumps absolutely to mind, and it was mentioned in those videos. The one about the the gay and lesbian kingdom of the Coral Sea Islands. The absolute like campness, like you were talking about earlier, the campness of it all, but also just the amount of work that they put in to do something for what they believed in. Like, I mean, they took over an island. Yeah, I was amazed by that, and it was really good to research. I also love any ones that I researched to do with art and artists. Because I'm not so well read on my art apart from dance. So when I do the stuff for the hot topic on art, I always find out something new, someone new creating something amazing. In fact, even the one from last month with all of our trans artists, trans and non-binary artists, it was phenomenal.
Well, just to give everyone a peek behind the curtain, bless Tommy's kind of trying to like cough and like sort of type, you know, to try to hear, and unfortunately he still can't hear Tommy, but I will interpret for your Mac playing Silly Monkeys. So Tommy's favourite, and this was actually a favourite of a lot of the team, rest of the team at Shaper Caper this evening, today, when we were chatting about sort of favourite moments. Lucy Dewar, our fantastic marketing whiz, was the In Out Crowd Festival. That was just something that, of course, we couldn't have imagined we would get so many amazing queer artists to come and tell their stories, showcase their work. Jo Clifford in particular had me in absolute tears, both during and after, which I'm sure she did across the place. You know, having Miss Peaches, who's a Dundee-based drag artist. You know, it was just so. I mean, I could go on and on. Jake, who we've worked with in the past, and are hopefully going to work with again in the future. It's just there's so many people that really just gave us the. It's such an eclectic and such a different mix of art and stories, and it was just amazing to actually. I was like, I'm getting paid to talk to all these people and have them like share their art with me. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And right there with you, Tommy. And of course, having Madonna as a guest star. And, you know, I've got to say the amount of times that we mentioned her, like we should get at least, you know, we own 5% of this company. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I'm feeling. And yeah, and then one more thing as well was, of course, talking about the HIV episode that we kind of chatted into to Gregor and to Jay, and Tommy also sharing his experiences of sort of growing up. And of course, I mean, you're only like 19, Tommy. How could you have grown up in the 80s and 90s? But, you know, having those conversations reminded Tommy to do a test, might have reminded lots of people to do a test or just be more aware of the kind of help and support and advice that there is out there. I mean, I could literally go through every single episode that we've done since that very, very first Monday. But of course, that is hopefully some stuff that we will that will live on in YouTube and Facebook, even with the gremlins forevermore. And of course, as well as having all of these amazing Scottish artists and queer artists across the globe, technically, you know, we have an amazing interview that we had with a freelance-based artist in Scotland called Rihanna Laws, who is working with Scottish Ballet on a number of projects. But we are specifically talking about Scottish Ballet's project Safe to Be Me. We had a podcast episode come out with Rihanna a couple of weeks ago, and this is the kind of first part of that podcast that we are going to show you now. This is Rihanna Laws with Scottish Ballet for our final one of 2021, our deep dive into current affairs, or as we call them here, our Raisin Liaisons. Tonight we are super excited to be chatting with the fabulous Rihanna Laws from Scottish Ballet. Hello Rihanna, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. I've been looking forward to coming and chatting to you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we have a plethora of questions all about your project Safe to Be Me. Eleanor, would you like to go ahead and kick us off for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. We've also been very much looking forward to having you, so it's great that you're here. But to start, could you introduce yourself? Who is Rihanna Laws, and can you tell us a little bit more about your connection to the Safe to Be Me project?
Yeah, sure. So I am Rihanna, and I'm the senior or the lead artist with the Safe to Be Me project. And so I was brought in very early on and asked if I would help to create the workshop that we now deliver in schools, and actually which was used as a template for the digital Safe to Be Me festival, which we celebrated earlier this year. So my role, what does that involve? It involves creating a workshop. It involves working with the three dancers who perform a short 15-minute piece that we start the day with in the primary schools. So together we've created this workshop that's based on that dance performance, and it's all about taking some core themes into primary school. So we take the themes of racism, homophobia, bigotry, transphobia, and ableism. So some really huge, meaty subjects there. And what we've done is we've created a really accessible, really fun, really uplifting day-long workshop. So my role is to facilitate that. It's creating it, it's working closely with the dancers, and it's facilitation. Yeah.
Sounds fab. So in terms of with the Safe to Be Me project, what do you foresee it kind of aiming to do, and how does it relate to, I mean, you've kind of mentioned the big meaty subjects, but what are you hoping that it will do for the queer kids that might be taking part, for the kids who might be experiencing already some of these big issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, one of the reasons I actually love the title of Safe to Be Me is because I think it really explains in very simple terms what we're hoping to achieve, which is to give the message that it is safe to be me, it's safe to be you, it's safe to be us. So I think within all of these bigger topics, the absolute core, the heart of what we're saying is actually it is normal to be very different, to be unique. I think when we're younger, sometimes we're really seeking for that kind of, that umbrella of normality that we can all fit into. And we just really want throughout our day to say, it is normal to be different. It is safe to be you. And through all the conversations that we have, because whilst it is a dance project, of course, there is a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion. And it is all about starting to strip away any preconceived ideas that actually we have to do anything to fit to somebody else's understanding of who we are, that actually we're there to have a conversation so that we can get some education going around language, so that people understand what it means to be lesbian, what it means to be gay. Sometimes the question around the word queer does come up, so we'll talk about that. We have all of this in place, what it means to be trans, so that actually those words aren't they're not misunderstood. There's no sort of elusive nature, that it's very much a case of this means this, and now you know, so you can go into that world and know. And so, I mean, in terms of your question about what about the queer kids out there in the class, what we're wanting to do is to say there are a lot of people in the world just like you, and that hopefully is going to be saying to them, there are role models out there, there's pathways ahead, there's conversations you can have, there's language that's clear that we are sharing with your classmates today, that is hopefully paving the way for that safe to be me world that ultimately is what we're hoping to create.
That sounds incredible, really it does. And I think especially what you were saying about the role models, as a young person you need to just be able to see that it is possible to be a person like you and have a so-called normal life and have normal job and normal dreams to have and so on. So
yes,
totally. Thank you for doing that work.
Yeah.
But you talked about the children learning a lot in the workshops, but what about yourself? What have you taken personally from the project?
Oh my gosh, every day is a learning day, every day. So oh goodness, well I have learned tons actually on just how to really use language, I think. So really getting comfortable with lots of different terminology. So that's pronouns that people might use. It's learning about, actually, it's really great to ask people if you're ever not sure. I've learned a lot about deeply listening to other people's stories. So we've done a lot of, we've had a lot of consultations with people from the trans community. So we've really had the privilege of actually people sharing their story with us. And so that in itself, I've learned tons actually about another person's journey in becoming who they truly, truly are. And learning about, you know, the privilege of being born into a body that just sits right on my skin, and actually what I can do to really support and be an ally. And that's as me personally, just as much as me as an artist within Safe to Be Me. And actually, in order to deliver this work to children who are sort of age 10 and 11, we go in at the P6, P7 age group. We've actually, you know, we approach it quite a surface level, but in order to do that and feel really comfortable, and for me to feel comfortable to be able to facilitate those conversations, not knowing at all what language the kids are going to use or what judgments they might be making on the whole spectrum of judgments that can be. So actually, myself and the dancers that I work with, we've gone very deep in our conversations, really, really deep, really unpicking things, unpicking personal experiences at times when it's been appropriate and felt okay to do so, in order to then have all of that context to then sit very confidently and comfortably on that surface level, which then makes it safe actually for all the kids. So yeah, I just have learned loads, and we keep learning, and that's what keeps the project alive actually. So yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those kind of things that you have to really go deep with those conversations, because you never know what the kids, I mean, that's what we love about kids, is that they just ask things, they just don't have that filter. So I think it's great to be able to have those conversations so no one's shocked about what may or may not come up, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we've had several occasions where kids have used actually what's been really inappropriate language, but they haven't known at all. So because we've had all these very deep conversations and we've really talked around everything, actually we've been able to receive the comment and not show anything on the face, but then really talk about how that language might affect somebody. And by the end of it, actually, the kid has got a real understanding of how the language they were using could have been quite hurtful to somebody. But they understand it, they've got language that's really positive, and nobody has been shamed, which is really important, I think, when we're educating, because we don't know what messages people are receiving ever. So we're there to unpick things at a really appropriate level. Yeah.
A fantastic conversation with Rihanna Laws from Scottish Ballet there about their project Safe to Be Me, and I believe that we have linked some more information about their Safe to Be Me festival earlier this year for anyone who would like to find out more about that. And unfortunately, that is the last of the interviews that we have to offer here in 2021. Once again, we would like to thank absolutely every single person who has even clicked on the in-out crowd for a millisecond since we began our very first episode all those years ago, back in Sicily 1992 or whatever it was. We'd like to, of course, thank all of our guests that gave up their time to come and chat with us and or show us their work. We'd like to thank all of the volunteers who gave us feedback about the in-out crowd and helped us move forward with our content. And of course, last but not least, we would love to thank all of the funders that were here for our kind of mission and our journey over the last kind of couple of months, trying to make the in-out crowd a safe queer online space to help kind of talk about some issues, talk about some things that are important to us, and hopefully have a wee bit of a laugh and a giggle along the way. And with all of that being said, for the final time, that is all, folks.